Yeah, okay, so it looks like I'm live on the Instagram. I can see people joining. So do you want me to continue with the restream? Okay. Okay, hello everybody. Good to see you. Could you type in where you're joining from? It would be nice to know where people are. Okay, that's great. Okay, so if everyone's happy, I'll start dealing with some of the questions. I'm just waiting for a few questions to come through. Hi, great. Good to have people from so many different places. Okay, I'm going to move my camera a little bit nearer so I can see the questions coming through, perhaps. Okay, one of the first questions that's come through through my email is about using different apps and sites in schools and which ones are legal to use. And I think that's a good question, but it depends very much, I guess, on your school as well, and the age group of your students, particularly if you're using any kind of apps or any kind of communication through the internet with other people, and you're doing it with students who are less than 13 years old, then you should sort of definitely be thinking about getting permission from parents and things like that. That's sort of a very important one to consider. With older students, really, again, it depends a bit on your school and the kind of interaction that you're having with your students. If you're exchanging using things like this and you're exchanging video messages or audio messages, then it's important then it's very important to sort of be able to get parents' permission, get permission from your school before you do anything that involves communication. In terms of the law itself, though, I mean, using any kind of apps or things like this with students isn't illegal in any way. It's just a matter of, making sure that your school knows what you're doing, the parents of any kids know what you're doing, and that everybody is okay with that. So that's kind of one of the main things. Okay, I'll move on to another question, and that's about how to monitor the use of apps by students and different apps and websites by students. And I think that's quite an important question, and that really kind of depends on the context that you're using them in. If you want an easy way to use different internet devices or apps with your students, then it's good to give them things to do at home that they can produce. Getting them to produce something sort of makes a big difference, I think, and that is very important. Yeah, I'm having a few problems with volume. I might have to move my camera a little bit closer. Let's see how we're doing. Okay, I hope that's better, but I don't really have a great tool for turning it up any louder. Okay, so another issue with monitoring students, if your students are using the apps in class, then yes, you should be keeping an eye on them. But it depends on the kind of apps you use. There's a very useful app that I have called Hypersay, and that locks your students into a specific a specific slide or of your presentation deck and specific interaction, and that's very important. That can help you stop getting your students distracted. Okay, just got some more questions through. I'll just check in my email. Yeah. Okay. There's a question here about can we justify the way that we've traditionally worked and ignore things like technology and different apps? And I think it is possible. I mean, I know that lots of teachers aren't really happy using technology, don't feel comfortable with it, and perhaps a lot of time there are problems with connectivity in schools and things like that. So that can be very difficult, I think. If you're working in a school that has poor connectivity and you're trying to use different websites and applications, that can be very difficult. But I think there are certain things, and particularly 21st century digital literacies and things like that our students really need to develop, and they really need to develop those skills through English. And I think if we're not using those kinds of applications, then it's very hard to develop some of the digital skills that they're going to need for their future. And I think that's sort of one of the important reasons why we should be using digital technologies. If you're not using them, it doesn't mean that you're a bad teacher. You can still be a good teacher without using any apps or websites or anything like that. But it's a question of whether you're giving your students the complete experience that they need to develop themselves as learners. Okay. I'm looking for more questions, if there's any more questions coming in. There's a question about apps to boost reading for starters. I think there are quite a few apps around at the moment. I'll just check my page. I saw something very nice, posted something very nice recently. Just waiting for the page to load. I've got a collection of different things that I have here. Just checking my notes. Reader. And you can never find what you want when you want it. Okay, I'll try the second one. There are lots of different apps that you can use for reading, and I think just getting students to read internet articles can be very motivating. I think there are some that are developed specifically for younger learners, and which will read to them, and sort of having apps that can sort of read to students is very useful. There's one very good one called Rivet, R-I-V-E-T, and that's for interactive reading on mobile devices, and there's a lot of very good books and that students can either read on the internet, they're interactive, or that they can that will read to them. There's a question about vocabulary games, and there's actually a very good app that I just found recently called Vocab Victor, and that's a very nice gamified version for vocabulary learning, and students can sort of have different challenges, and they work their way through a sort of interactive game by completing different challenges and identifying different words and making word associations. I really like word association for developing vocabulary, and that's called Vocab Victor. Vocab, V-O-C-A-B, and Victor, V-I-C-T-O-R. I'm just trying to read the next question. Yeah, there's a question here about problems, I think, with distraction with mobile apps and particularly mobile devices in the classroom. You know, if you've got a lot of students who've got their mobile devices, they're bringing them to class, then it can be very difficult. It can be very difficult to sort of manage students, but I think one of the key things to do about that is to sort of get students using their mobile devices in a productive way, and in that way, you know, they're less likely to be distracted by them. I think one of the other things that it's very good to do, you know, if your students have mobile devices, is try to teach them how to switch off notifications. You know, people who develop mobile applications are very good at using them to grab our attention, and you know, mostly that comes through things like notifications, through sounds of little messages. If you actually sort of have a lesson with your students on how to control those notifications, then that would be something really useful for you, I think. The other app that I mentioned earlier, which is called Hypersay, which is Hypersay, Hypersay is a very good one too. Hypersay enables you to lock your student's device into your presentation and make your presentation interactive. So that's something that's very useful for controlling students' devices. And if you come along to the webinar that's on Thursday, you know, I should be able to show you that. It's a bit more difficult to show it to you over an Instagram stream. Another app that's very nice, somebody asked about apps for primary students and very low-level students. There's something called Tiny Cards, Tinycards, which is Tiny Cards, and it's connected with flashcards, and it's a free app that was developed by Duolingo. And the app enables you to create flashcards with images and words and sounds, and it gives your students the chance to sort of review vocabulary in that way. That's something that's very good for younger learners. Another app that I really like for younger learners is something called Toontastic, which is Toontastic, Toontastic. And Toontastic is a marvellous app for young learners. It enables them to create digital animations just using an app on their mobile device and their finger. And what they do is they choose different scenes, they can add characters to them, and then they just press on the character and record their voice, and they can move the character around with their finger on their mobile device. And that's a really nice way to sort of get them developing their speaking skills. So they produce the voices for these different characters, and they build up different scenes and create narrative and that kind of thing. And that's a very nice app. And again, one that I'll be talking about in more detail on Thursday if you come along to the webinar. There was a question a little while back about sort of boosting grammar with students. You know, there are a whole range of different grammar apps available on the iTunes or on Google Play. Much as I like apps, I haven't found a lot of the grammar ones to be quite so useful. You know, often I think the they're a bit repetitive and a bit boring for students. And I think, you know, what students really like and find really useful is apps that they can create something on. You know, if they're able to create a video, record audio, or create images, you know, I find those kinds of apps are much more powerful and much more motivating for students. If it's just a case of, you know, going through some repetitive grammar practice, then students don't tend to find that very motivating. You know, what they want is sort of elements of creativity and interaction with people, rather than just sort of filling in gaps with grammar and things like that. There's a question about the names of the apps, and I think they're being filled into the chat as we go along. I actually don't have hands-on with my phone at the moment, so it's very difficult for me to fill them in as I go. Jane, I think, is adding them. Okay, have we got any more questions? Okay, another interesting one. Somebody was asking about creating videos, and you know, it's really nice to be able to create videos with your students and get them to create videos. And a very good one, particularly if you've got younger learners, is an app called Telestory. That's T-E-L-E and then story, Telestory. And that's great because it gives your students templates. So there's like a template for creating, for example, a news chat, a news report. And so, as well as having the template so that they create the different parts of the news story, they also have kind of disguises that they can put over themselves. So, you know, they can have a hat and glasses which appear in the template. So that's a great one for sort of getting students to create their own videos and work together on producing little video shows. They can do a news broadcast using that, or they can do a fan video of their favourite band, or they can do things like cooking shows and things like that. And that's called Telestory. And again, that's a free one to download. It works on both the Apple device and it also works on Android devices. So that's a really useful one. And just like Toontastic, both of those will work offline even if you have no internet connection. Yeah, Telestory, someone's typed it in, Telestory, that's Telestory. Okay, I'm just looking for... Next question is, can you recommend websites to create content? One of my favourite ones, actually, which I use to create all my digital materials for my books for Peachey Publications, is a site called Genially, and that's GENIAL.ly. That's Genially. And Genially is a wonderful website that allows you to create presentations and infographics and different learning objects using a technology called HTML5. HTML5 is great because it will work in any browser regardless of the device. So it will work equally well on your laptop or desktop computer in the browser as it will on an iPad or an Android phone or any phone that has a browser. And Genially is a kind of graphic editor, so there are lots of different images and icons and little animations and GIFs and things like that, and you can drag them onto the stage and put them all together into a very kind of nice presentation and sort of digital interactive materials that you can then use with your students. Once you've created your materials, you get a link to the material, and then you just need to create a QR code, and your students can scan it onto their mobile device, and they'll be able to sort of work through the digital materials on their device. So that's Genially, GENIAL.ly. genially, and that's just come through the chat. Okay, I'm looking for another question. I'll see if any have come through by email. Yeah, some more questions. There's a question about getting students interested and involved, and I think, really I think that depends on the content of your lesson. Technology is a wonderful thing. You can get lots of different apps and you can get lots of different websites to use with students, but in the end it's the core content of your lesson and how you get students to use that within your lesson that's going to be really important, and that's going to be what determines how engaged they are with you, with the lesson. I think there's a tip that I've just seen come through here. Content has to be personalised. It has to be of interest to your students. So really the content and the topic of your lessons that are really important. If you haven't got that right, no amount of technology and no amount of apps are really going to help you. You really need to sort of have some interesting content and things to do with those apps. There's a question about apps for listening practice here. One of my favourite apps for listening practice is an app called Lyrics Training, and that's lyricstraining.com. That's LYRICS lyrics and then training TRAINING lyricstraining.com. And that's a great app because what Lyrics Training has is it has a collection of videos from YouTube, different kinds of music videos, and using these music videos, students watch them and they have to use the app to recreate the lyrics from the videos. It's very nice because it's gamified as well, so it acts like a kind of a computer game, so they keep score as they use it. They can replay different lines as many times as they like, and they play it again until they've reconstructed the whole of the lyrics for the song. They can play it at different levels. If it's a difficult song, only a few different words are taken out, but if it's a simpler song, you can take all of the words out and it becomes almost like a complete dictation. So lyricstraining.com, that's a great one. Very motivating for students, especially if they like music, which most students do. Lyrics training and songs, I think in general, are things that students don't mind listening to again and again and again if it's something they like. So that really sort of develops their sort of bottom-up listening and really focuses them on hearing sort of word boundaries and what the words are in songs. I think that's one thing to be aware of, though, if you do any kinds of songs with students, is that often they can reconstruct the lyrics eventually, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they understand what the song means. So it's still a good idea to sort of go back and sort of check with them that they understand and sort of do a lesson on actually what the meaning of those words are and concentrating a bit on that. Somebody asked about a karaoke app, and Lyrics Training can be used in a kind of karaoke mode, so that's something worth trying out. There's a question about what platforms do you use to hold classes, and that question about platforms, there are different answers to that. I think there are a number of different platforms, and it depends on what kind of context you're teaching in. If you want to teach online and deliver classes online, then I think a very good one that you can use is iTeachWorld. That's iteach.world. And that's a platform that provides you with a classroom, an online classroom. You can build blended learning on it by building courses there, and then you can meet your students in the live classroom, interact with them using the classroom. There's a whiteboard there, a presentation space, they can watch videos together, you can do listening activities. So if you want to teach online, then I think iTeach World is a great platform to do that. For classroom use, if you're thinking about using a platform within your classroom and you want to sort of make your classroom a bit more digitally friendly, then I use a platform called backchannelchat.com. That's back, B-A-C-K, channel, C-H-A-N-N-E-L, chat, C-H-A-T.com. That's backchannelchat.com. And what that enables me to do is it enables me to connect all my students together through their different digital devices and start sharing links with them, opinion polls, sharing different materials with them. So that's a very good platform for using in the classroom when you're actually physically in the classroom. And again, that helps stop with a lot of the problems of distraction. You know, if you're getting your students busy on that platform and you're giving them links to different articles to read, documents, images, videos to watch, you know, or opinion polls, that keeps them busy with their device and they're using it in the classroom rather than, you know, using it for a form of distraction. You can also sort of pull in what they're saying during while they're interacting through it, and they can interact with each other, and you know, you can get them much more involved in the lesson. So if you want something to use in the classroom, backchannelchat.com is a very good one. The third form that you might want in terms of platforms, so I've looked at one that you can use for teaching live online, one that you can use on the classroom. If you want to build online courses that students do independently, then a very good platform to use is WordPress and a technology called h5p.org. WordPress, many of you might know about, is a very simple free tool that you can use to build an online website, and there's a plugin for it called H5P, which enables you to create interactive activities which you build into the WordPress website. So if you wanted to build a course online that was very interactive, had all kinds of speaking, listening interactions, drag and drop exercises, word fills, gap fills, those kind of traditional computer-assisted language learning kinds of interactions, then you can build those very simply with H5P. And H5P is also free. So if you go to h5p.org, you will see the kind of interactions that enables you to build. And again, you know, it's a plugin for WordPress. So those are my three favourite platforms. If I'm teaching live, I use iTeach World. If I'm teaching in the classroom face-to-face, then I use backchannelchat.com. But if I want to build an online course and get my students working on an online course, then it's h5p.org, the plugin for that, which goes into WordPress, or it can go into Moodle, or it goes into Canvas or to Blackboard as well. And you know, all of those things are pretty much free. If you like Blackboard and you want to set up your own Blackboard site, if you like Moodle and you want your own Moodle site, I'm just checking online and I'll find you. I think I can find you a site where you can get a free Moodle. Just 1 minute. Yeah, the site is called genomio.com. And I'll just get the spelling for that for you. If you want your own free Moodle site, then it's go to gnomio.com. It's gnomio.com, gnomio.com, and you can set up a free Moodle site there. Okay, I'm looking for the next question. Are there any apps for shared use of something like that? Like one student works on his or her iPhone and the others are able to watch it at the same time. There are apps that you can use to do collaborative writing with. Some very good ones as well. I'll just see if I can find one for you. Where can I find that? There are kind of some very good apps that you can use for collaborative writing where students can see what each other are writing and they can sort of work on writing activities together. I just need to just do a search for you and see if I can find one that's up to date. Yeah. You can try something called etherpad.net. It's etherpad.net. That's etherpad.net. And what that enables you to do is it enables you or your students to create a piece of digital paper. And once you create this piece of digital paper, multiple students can work on it at the same time from their independent devices. So if you want them to do things like writing collaboratively, they can watch each other write and write together. You can watch them write if you have the link to the pad that they create, and that can make writing very digital and very collaborative. It even has a kind of nice time slider tool which you can drag backwards and forwards to see how they constructed the text. So if you want to do things like collaborative writing, then sort of etherpad.net is a very good one for doing that. Okay, I'm looking out for another question. I'll just check my... check to see if any have come through the email. Yeah, there's a question about virtual reality apps for the classroom, and there are quite a few good ones around. I mean, they're not specifically made for language learning, although there are a couple of schools that have emerged quite recently which are using virtual reality. There's a very good one called Visor, where you can create virtual reality stories for your students. It's called the URL for it is site.vizor.io. That's Visor, and that's a useful one for creating sort of interactive experiences and stories. And there are lots of different VR apps and virtual reality apps where you can find 3D stories that your students can search through and walk around. There's one where they can build their own. They can have virtual reality chats. There's one called VR Chat, and that's vrchat.net. And that's something that they can use to chat with people. And there is actually a three-dimensional virtual reality school that you can set up, and that's called EduWorlds. Oh, hang on, let me check on that. No, Edauble. So if you want to set up your own 3D virtual reality school, you can use a site called Edauble. That's edorble.com. And Edauble allows you to set up a 3D online school. Your students have to download software for it, but then what happens is once they launch the software, they have an avatar who moves around on their kind of three-dimensional island, and they can move and chat with other students in different places on the island. It also has a kind of amphitheatre classroom where they can go and look at websites, or browse internet videos together, and that also works either in 3D on the video on the computer screen, or it will work with a virtual reality headset. One of the biggest problems with virtual reality at the moment is that to get any kind of really good interaction between yourself and the virtual reality, or yourself and another student who's in the virtual reality, the main problem is that you need sort of very high levels of connectivity and bandwidth, and you also need a very powerful computer. Most average computers won't run a kind of something like an Oculus Rift virtual reality headset, and so you need to buy either a bespoke device, which could be very expensive, or something similar to get that to work. At the other end of the scale, though, there are things like Google Cardboard, which you get a piece of cardboard box, and it creates a little virtual reality headset that you can put your phone into, and that's very useful for creating basic virtual reality experiences that students can interact with a little. So also try out Google Cardboard as well, because that does have its uses, and there are lots of things that have already been created using that, so that's worth trying. But there are lots of different sort of virtual reality tools around. Another one is called Mirror, M-I-R-R-A, and then that you can use to create virtual reality experiences for your students, and something called Blocks by Google, which enables your students to create sort of animated 3D, which is kind of nice, using a virtual reality headset. But at the moment, for sort of mainstream teaching, I think virtual reality is still a bit ahead of the cutting edge for those kinds of things. Somebody's asking about apps for pronunciation and intonation. Yeah, there are. I'll just dig up some references for you. My records. And there's a lot of apps that can help you convert script to phonetics. There's something called Phonetizer, P-H-O-N-E-T-I-Z-E-I, and that's something that you can use to convert normal writing into phonemic script, and that can have its uses. I think anything that you use that involves listening and getting students to record themselves can be very useful for sort of developing things like pronunciation and intonation. There are a few apps like Buckaroo, which you can use to record yourself and share recordings of yourself with students. If I just get the URL for that. So that's, come on, Buckaroo, VOCAROO.com, and that enables you to record your voice, so you can record examples of your speaking for students, or they can record examples of speaking and pronunciation for each other. So you can use that to record examples, quickly upload them to the internet and share them in a very easy way. There's a beta version of that also works on the mobile application. I mean, the other thing to think about is if your students have their mobile phones in class, nearly every modern mobile phone has a voice memo app. So, actually using that voice memo app is a good way to get them to make recordings of pronunciation and audio. So you could sort of actually model that for them, and then they can record it and they can listen to themselves at home. There is another site called Pronounce Live. Let me just check to see if that is still live. And that's a way of getting some computer generated feedback on your speaking. So that site's called pronouncelive.com, so that's PRONOUNCELIVE, pronouncelive.com. And what that will do is it will measure your speaking ability against a model, and it will give you different scores for that. So you just have to speak into it. It gives you a sentence to say. You say the sentence, and then it will give you a score for each word and how well you pronounced it. And there are a number of these kind of things around nowadays, but you know, they tend to be a bit hit and miss about how well they measure your pronunciation. They can be really good, or sometimes they can be really bad. Just like things like Duolingo has sort of voice recognition on it. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Somebody's asking about a whiteboard tool. I do know where there's a good whiteboard tool. Just let me check the URL for it. Oh no, that one's not live anymore. Sorry, I can't find that one at the moment. I'm just searching through. Let me try again. I have quite a large archive of different links to different useful tools. Okay, so there's a great one called Classroom Screen, which is absolutely free. So if you want something that you can use that's a bit like an interactive whiteboard, but you haven't got money to pay for it, there's one that works very well in the web browser, and it's called classroomscreen.com. So that's CLASSROLL. Sorry, I'll start that again. Classroom, CLASSROOM, screen, SCREEN.com. And what that is, it's a sort of an interactive whiteboard that works within the web browser, and it can do all the kinds of things that the usual interactive whiteboards can do. You can drag images to it, write on it with your pen, and all those kinds of things, and it just works within your browser. So that's yeah, that's right, classroomscreen.com. So that's an interactive whiteboard and has multiple pages on, and you can save the pages if you need to, and sort of prepare pages. So that's something that's really useful if you're looking for some kind of interactive whiteboard. There are a few other ones. There's one called Edu Creations. That's Edu, E-D-U, Creations, CREATIONS, Edu Creations, and that one actually enables you to record what you're writing on the interactive whiteboard screen, and so that you can make a little movie of it that you can show your students afterwards, which is quite interesting. So those are two of the better ones about at the moment, if you're looking for sort of to create your own interactive whiteboard and you don't want to buy one. Any other questions? I'm sort of looking for more questions. While I'm waiting for another question, I'll just have some water. Speaking practice. Speaking practice is a different one, especially I think at the moment things like AI are still a bit aren't fantastic. Although there is a nice app that you can use to get your students building their own interactive AI chat partner. Let me just find the link for that for you. Okay, just getting it. Okay, and the site is called Embody Digital. Just let me get the spelling for that for you. So Embody Digital, it's Embody, EMBODY, Digital, DIGITAL.com, Embody Digital. And what it enables your students to do is to create an interactive chat app which has an avatar that they can speak to, and they do it by using a Google spreadsheet. So first they create the Google spreadsheet, which has all the questions they want the avatar to be able to answer, and it also has, they have to fill in the questions and the different answers, and then they connect the spreadsheet to an app, and it enables them to create an Android app which will then speak to them. They can use voice recognition to ask the app questions, and there's a little avatar that appears that will answer their questions for them. So it becomes a kind of an AI-driven kind of chat app. You could actually create one yourself for your students if you wanted to sort of create a whole bunch of grammar questions and answers, put them into a spreadsheet and then link them together, and you can create your own AI chat grammar app for your students. It takes a little bit of time, but you know, great thing to do, and you can use it again and again once you've created it. So that's called embodydigital.com. Question: do you ever create interactive PowerPoint presentations? I do use. I don't use PowerPoint, but I use something similar to it, which is the Apple version, which is Keynote, and I make them interactive by using Hypersay. That's Hypersay is HYPERSAY.com. And what you do is you create your presentation, or you can take a presentation that you've already created, you upload it to Hypersay, and then you can add different interactions into it. And that's a really useful way of making your presentation much more interactive, because using Hypersay, you not only create interaction in your presentation, but you can allow your students to access the presentation through their mobile app. So you get a simple code, students open it in the browser on their mobile device, and then they're able to follow your presentation and work through the different interactions and polls and quizzes, word clouds that you've added there. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a bit. So that's Hypersay. So it doesn't just make your presentation interactive, but it also pushes it to your student's device so that they can follow it on the device, they can ask questions through the device, they can answer polls, and they can make notes on the presentation as well, and then it's saved to their mobile device afterwards. So that's a sort of great way for sort of making presentations really interactive. It's something that I use quite a lot at conferences these days, because you know, it's nice to, if you've got a big conference audience, it's hard to get them talking to each other or to talk to them, but you can still make your presentation interactive and get them sort of doing quizzes, and you get the responses from all of that, and you get some data at the end of it, which is very nice. There's a question about motivating students to do homework with pleasure. I think if you can find things, like the app, for example, that I recommended earlier, lyricstraining.com, which is watching music videos, or watching and listening to music videos and then reconstructing the lyrics. That's the kind of thing they'll happily do at home, and I think they'll do it and enjoy it. So if you set them a song to do for homework, and especially with lyrics training, they can log in and register, and they get a score for their song, so they can come along and prove to you that they've done it. They also get a bit more competitive about it, and they can sort of see how well they've done it and try and beat other people on a scoreboard. So things like that are very good, and then you can follow that up in the classroom once they've they've reconstructed the videos for the song. You can follow it up in the classroom and have a lesson about the meaning of the song, or looking at talking about the song and telling other people about the song. So that's something very useful. But I think there are also lots of websites like the British Council's Learn English Kids, or BBC's Learning English site, where you can find lots of kind of motivating interactive materials for students that they can do, which are free and open access. So giving them homework assignments that involve doing interactive activities on different websites, I think is a great way of giving them motivating homework. So that's lyricstraining.com. Learn English from the British Council. Learn English Kids, if you've got younger learners, has loads of materials on, or the BBC's Learning English website, which is also a really useful one. Lots of materials there, and lots of resources around there. Apps or websites similar to Kahoot. There are quite a few sort of different apps and websites similar to Kahoot. If you're happy with Kahoot, I'd just stick with Kahoot though, because it seems like it's one that's going to be around for a long time. There's a good business model there, and I don't think it's worth looking around for other things if you're happy with what you've got. Especially as things seem to come and go, especially if there's not a good business model behind them. I'm just looking for a couple of other good websites for content. There's a website called ESL Active, which has a lot of free websites, free interactive content on as well. That's ESL Active, ESLACTIVE.com, ESL Active. That has a number of different content on that you can use with your students. And lots of people are suggesting other things similar to Kahoot, like Quizlet and quizzes. There are quite a few of them about. There's also another good place is, let me get the URL for you, check that I've got this right, is a site called ESL Collective, and that's EN.EISL Collective, COLLECTIVE. So that's, sorry, I got that wrong, it's ISL Collective, and that's a great place where people share materials. Most of it is printable materials, but they also have a section on videos, which has lots of interactive video activities in, which are really great and nicely designed. And you can actually create your own videos on that site, your own video activities, and just by grabbing a link from YouTube and then creating the different kind of video. Let's see if I can find one for you. Video lesson plans. So look for the video lesson plans part of the site, and there are lots of lesson plans and interactive video activities that you can find there. Okay, I'm looking for another question now. ISL Collective. One thing that I'll recommend to you, which is, if you're looking for specific sites for specific things, I keep a site where I collect all of the different websites that I find and the different apps that I find, and it's a site called Tools for Teachers and Learners, and the URL is scoopit, that's SCOOP.IT, then /topics/tools for learners, and that's a kind of collection of different websites, apps and resources that are, most of which are free for students to use in the classroom. And there are about 1,500 different free apps and different applications and resources on that site. So if you can get there and you can click on the filter and search there, then it's very easy to find sort of different things that you might find useful for your teaching. So that's scoopit, SCOOP.IT, and then topic, Tools for Teachers and Learners. Or if you just do a search on Nik Peachey, Tools for Teachers and Learners, you'll probably find that within Google. And it has an index of about 1,500 different apps and applications that you can use. Lots of those suitable for all different age groups. I'll just do a search on grammar because somebody's been asking about grammar. There's a site called the Virtual Grammar Tutor, the Virtual Writing Tutor, which gives feedback on written grammar. So that's the Virtual Writing Tutor, and so students can do assignments in there and check different elements of their writing and get feedback on it. So if you want to do something to help develop students' grammar, then try Virtual Writing Tutor. That's virtual, VIRTUAL, writing, WRITING, tutor, TUTOR.com. Virtual Writing Tutor, and that's one that you can use with your students to get grammatical feedback on their writing. So that's a very useful one, and again it's free. There is an app called Grammar Fix, which gives students tips on sort of grammar points and what they're most likely to get wrong. That's Grammar Fix, grammar, GRAMMAR, Fix, FIX, and that's on the App Store, and I think it's also available for Android, and there are some sort of simple tips on that one. And one of the best ones I think is actually called Write and Improve, which is one by Cambridge University Press, and students can write any text in and they can get feedback on their text, and that's Write and Improve. So write, WRITE, and AND, improve, IMPROVE.com, Write and Improve. And using that app, it just opens in the browser. Students can type in, it can set them little assignments, and then they get some feedback on them. So that's sort of a great one for developing their grammar knowledge. There's a question about auxiliary verbs. I'm not sure that I have time for answering specific grammar questions, but try Write and Improve and try typing some in and see what feedback you get. Okay, I'm just going to send a link to the moderator and see if they can share that with you, because that's the site where the link to the site where I collect all the different apps. Okay, I'm just sending that. Okay, I've just sent the link to the Scoop It site that I collect everything with. Learning with movies, yeah, there's a great site called Fluentize, which is very good if you want students to learn with movies. It has short movie clips which students can watch, and there are lesson plans to go with them. So Fluentize, just let me find make sure I get you the correct spelling for that. Fluentize is F-L-E-U, oh no, hang on, that's not right. Fluentize, Fluentize.com, Fluentize.com, and it has lots of free lesson plans and built around video clips from movies. So that's a great one if you want to use movies with your students.